Stop scrolling and look at this image. Your brain is telling you it is CGI. It has to be. Clouds do not form underwater. Rocks do not organize themselves into perfect hexagons. And trees do not bleed crimson blood when you cut them. But everything you are about to see is 100% real. We live on a planet that is far stranger than we give it credit for. From caves that will cook you alive in minutes to lakes that turn animals into stone statues, these are the glitches in our reality. Today, we are visiting 10 impossible places that actually exist. We start in South America, at the triple border point of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana. This is Mount Roraima. It looks less like a mountain and more like an island explicitly cut out of the earth and lifted into the sky. Geologists call these tepuis. They are tabletop mountains with sheer vertical cliffs dropping over 400 meters straight down. But it is not just the shape that makes Roraima impossible. It is the age. These rocks date back to the Precambrian era, making them some of the oldest geological formations on Earth, roughly 2 billion years old. While the rest of the world was shifting, eroding, and evolving, Roraima stayed put. Because the summit has been isolated from the rainforest below for millions of years, evolution took a different path up here. Roughly 35% of the species found on top of Roraima exist nowhere else on the planet. It is a biological time capsule. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was so fascinated by the reports of this place that he wrote The Lost World based on it, imagining dinosaurs still roaming the plateau. While we haven't found dinosaurs, we have found black frogs that cannot hop. They just crawl. And fields of carnivorous pitcher plants that thrive in the nutrient-poor soil by eating insects. It is a completely alien ecosystem hovering above the clouds. In the middle of the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan, there is a hole in the ground that has been burning for over 50 years. Locals call it the door to hell. But this wasn't an act of nature. It was a mistake. Back in 1971, Soviet geologists were drilling for oil when they hit a massive underground natural gas cavern. The ground collapsed, swallowing their rig and camp. Fearing the spread of poisonous methane gas, they decided to light it on fire. They thought it would burn out in a few weeks. 5 decades later, it is still roaring. Standing at the edge, the heat is unbearable, and the sound is like a jet engine that never takes off. Travel to southwest Bolivia, and you lose the horizon completely. During the rainy season, the Salar de Uyuni salt flat becomes the world's largest mirror. It spans over 10,000 square kilometers. When covered with just a thin layer of water, the reflection of the sky is so perfect that it becomes impossible to tell where the Earth ends and the heavens begin. GPS satellites actually use this surface to calibrate their altimeters because it is flatter than any artificial surface humans have ever constructed. Walking here feels like walking among the clouds. But underneath this beauty is about 50 to 70% of the world's known lithium reserves. Your smartphone battery likely started its life right beneath this mirror. This next location is beautiful, but deadly. Tanzania's Lake Natron is a chemical nightmare for most living things. The water is extremely alkaline, with a pH level that can reach 10.5, almost as caustic as ammonia. This is caused by sodium carbonate and other minerals flowing into the lake from the surrounding volcanic hills. It is so caustic it can burn the skin and eyes of animals that aren't adapted to it. But the most terrifying legend about Lake Natron is that it turns animals to stone. When birds or bats die in the water, the minerals preserve their bodies, calcifying them into eerie, statue-like mummies. They wash up on the shore, perfectly preserved in their final moments of life. On the coast of Northern Ireland, there are 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, so uniform, They look like they were laid by a machine. This is the Giant's Causeway. Most of these columns are perfect hexagons. Ancient legend says the giant Finn McCool built it as a bridge to fight a rival in Scotland. The scientific truth is just as violent. About 60 million years ago, this area was a hotbed of volcanic activity. When molten basalt lava forced its way through the chalk beds, it cooled rapidly. As it cooled, it contracted just as mud cracks when it dries. The lava cracked into these geometric pillars. It is a rare example of chaos creating order. If you woke up on Socotra Island without knowing where you were, you would assume you had been kidnapped by aliens. Located in the Indian Ocean, belonging to Yemen, Socotra is the most isolated continental landform of non-volcanic origin on Earth. Because of this isolation, life here is bizarre. It has been described as the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. There are over 700 species of flora and fauna here found nowhere else. It is hot, dry, and harsh, yet life thrives in shapes that defy conventional biology. The most famous resident is the dragon blood tree. It looks like an umbrella turned inside out or a giant mushroom made of wood. The branches branch out in a perfect fractal pattern to create a dense canopy that shades the root system, reducing evaporation in the desert heat. But its name comes from what is inside. If you slice the bark, it bleeds a thick, dark red resin. For centuries, this dragon blood was used as a dye, a medicine, and even in alchemy. Standing in a forest of these trees feels like walking through a science fiction set, but it is just nature solving the problem of survival in a unique way. From the ground, the Sahara Desert looks like endless sand, but look at it from space, and you see a giant eye staring back at you. This is the Richat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania. It is a circular feature 40 kilometers in diameter. It is so prominent that early astronauts used it as a landmark to orient themselves. For a long time, scientists thought it was an impact crater from a massive asteroid. But there is a problem. There is no evidence of shock metamorphosed rocks that you would find at an impact site. Current theories suggest it is a deeply eroded geologic dome, a pimple on the Earth's crust that collapsed and eroded over millions of years, exposing the concentric rings of rock layers. In British Columbia, Canada, there is a lake that looks like a polka dot painting. In the winter and spring, it looks like a normal body of water. But as the summer heat evaporates the water, hundreds of massive briny pools are left behind. The water is rich in minerals calcium, sodium sulfates, and magnesium sulfates. Depending on the mineral composition of each individual pool, they turn different shades of yellow, green, and blue. The spots are actually hard enough to walk on, forming natural walkways between the pools. The indigenous Okanagan people consider this a sacred site with healing waters, and looking at it, you can understand why they believed it held special power. If you fly over the southwestern tip of Mauritius, you will see the ocean floor seemingly drop away into a massive abyss, with water cascading down into the depths. It looks like a portal to the center of the Earth. This is the famous underwater waterfall. But don't panic. It is an optical illusion. You are not seeing water falling. You are seeing sand and silt deposits being driven off the coastal shelf by ocean currents. The way the sand flows creates a high contrast visual that tricks the brain into seeing a three-dimensional drop. Even though we know the science, your eyes will still struggle to accept that it is safe to sail over it. We have saved the most spectacular and the most dangerous for last. Buried 300 meters below the surface of Chihuahua, Mexico, is the Cave of the Crystals. This chamber contains the largest natural crystals ever found on Earth. Some of these selenite beams are 12 meters long and weigh 55 tons. They have been growing for 500,000 years in total darkness. Walking in here is like walking into the fortress of solitude. The crystals crisscross the cavern, creating a chaotic, sharp, and beautiful geometry that makes humans look like insects in comparison. But this beauty comes with a price. You cannot just visit this cave. Without special protection, you would be dead in under 30 minutes. The temperature inside hovers around 58 degrees Celsius, with nearly 100% humidity. In these conditions, sweating doesn't work. Your body cannot cool itself. The heat comes from a magma chamber sitting just below the cave, which is also what kept the mineral-rich water at the perfect temperature for these crystals to grow for millennia. The cave was only discovered because miners pumped the water out. If the pumps ever stop, the water will return, and the crystals will be hidden once again. These 10 places remind us that the map is not the territory. We think we know our planet. We map it with satellites, we divide it with borders, and we pave it with roads. But Earth is dynamic, violent, and creative. It can create geometry that rivals our best architects and colors that shame our best artists. Some of these places, like the door to hell, are scars of our own making. Others, like Roraima, are monuments to deep time that make our history look like a blink of an eye. They are anomalies, outliers, and exceptions to the rules. Which of these places would you dare to visit? Would you stand on the edge of the burning crater in Turkmenistan? Or would you risk the heat to see the giant crystals in Mexico? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this tour of the impossible, you need to see our video on the places that science still cannot explain. The link is on the screen right now. Before you go, hit that subscribe button. We have a lot more of this planet to explore, and I don't want you to miss it. Thanks for watching.